It's day 41 right now. I spent the afternoon out in the garden. It's a beautiful day, and the air smells so fresh. I don't know if it's my imagination or if it really is just less industry, less cars, less crap, but it smells amazing. It's like the freshest spring day I've ever experienced. It's gorgeous. Oh, I wish you could smell that air. And there's my garden at the moment. Maybe you can see the garlic along the back there in the dark, along the side, both back sides. That's all been aerated and tilled and composted. Emptied out my compost. There it is. Who's that? And just a little bit of the garden left to do, maybe a quarter of it left to do. So I'll probably get that done tomorrow if the weather permits. And I'm not going to upload today, so this will be uploaded on day 42. Hi there, Drutter here, April 26th, 2020. Today is the 42nd day of my lockdown diary. I'm here in south central British Columbia, just a few hours inland from Vancouver. I have a few stories I want to talk about today. I usually talk about stories that I noticed around the world, my opinion and analysis of that, some data, including deaths data, and I talk a little bit about what's going on here in my corner of the world so that people can get a taste of how it is elsewhere during this global lockdown that we're now in. And we have been in for, well, more than 40 days and 40 nights now. Deaths are slowing considerably. This is some data that I've been looking at for a while now, almost since the start. Deaths are the lagging indicator and the most reliable indicator. That said, certain countries like the USA are over-reporting deaths, and certain countries like China are under-reporting deaths. So we don't know exactly how many deaths, but we have a general pattern, and deaths are slowing, no matter what they try and do. Deaths are slowing considerably. So that is good news. The lockdown is working. Cases started to slow down and drop off a couple of weeks ago. And that was because a few weeks before that is when the lockdown started. So it takes a couple of weeks really for lockdown to show in the numbers for cases, and then another couple of weeks after that for it to show up in the deaths. But as I said, I can't remember how long ago it was, day 28 or 30, I said, have we peaked? And yeah, we had peaked at that time. That was pretty much exactly when we peaked, and it was obvious at that point to a few of us. And now I think it's obvious to pretty much everybody. So the question of whether the lockdown is working is sort of solved, I think. It is a contentious issue, obviously. Some people believe that it was far too heavy-handed. That's me, I'm in that category. It's been too long, and it's been too deep and too heavy. And the deaths are not justifying the lockdown. The lockdown maybe was a good idea for a short time, maybe for a couple of weeks during the peak of the crisis, but it should never have been so long, so deep, or so enforced. And the way that they are going about this is disturbing, especially with the societal changes that are being brought in on the back of this crisis. So the crisis is being amplified and made to seem even worse than it already is, so that they can pass all these laws that would not have been able to pass beforehand, and all these societal changes that we would have not accepted beforehand. A few months ago, before this happened, if you had told people that maybe we're going to shut down all shops for the rest of history, never go to a shop again, nobody ever set foot in a store or a farmer's market or any other way to transact with other humans in person. They're talking about that now as a result of this. That's not something that could have been talked about before. So it's time to reopen, and it's time to find out who lied. Get it? Who lied? Say no more. Literally, say no more, or this video and my entire channel will disappear. Say no more about that. Now I want to talk about the title story for this: negative price for oil, milk, tulip bulbs, and lives. And I've already covered the milk and the oil in past videos where I said, the prices of these things are going below zero, and they're actually having to destroy it or unmine the oil, basically. They're putting the oil back into wells, back into caves, back into the ground. And it's costing them tons of money to transport it and then have people pump it back into the ground. It's very expensive. But because the price of oil is negative, that's actually what's happening. And milk is similar. The price of milk has gone negative so much that the farmers are destroying as much milk as they can, good milk, dumping it down the drain and pouring it into fields, for example, to get rid of it. to drop the amount of supply so that they can push up the prices. And it doesn't make any sense to me to push up prices during a collapse, especially when there's people hungry. There's people hungry that can use that milk. And as I said before, I'm vegan. I don't consider milk to be food. I consider that to be breast milk, and it is breast milk. But it's not for me, but that is for other people. Other people do believe that milk is food, and it's being dumped, and those people are going hungry. So there's something really wrong with that. And this is the sign of an economy shitting the bed and falling down the stairs at the same time. It's just a disaster. That word doesn't even cover it. It's worse than a disaster. So now there's even more signs that the economy is shitting the bed and falling down the stairs at the same time. And that is reflected in the price of birds' lives and pigs' lives and other mammals' lives, like cows. These animals that we enslave, literally, and breed by force, including rape, and continue their genetic lines against their will so that we can abuse, harm, torture, kill, and eat their bodies and harvest their breast milk and other products. Now millions of healthy birds are to be executed in eastern United States and their bodies dumped and rotted on purpose. These are healthy birds, and this could be food for other people. I don't eat birds, but other people do. I consider them to be people. Birds have a personality, they're unique, and that's what makes something a person. I don't think a person has to be a human. That's why there's different words for it. And people say that their dogs are people and part of the family and all that kind of stuff. Birds are not as intelligent and not as advanced as mammals, but birds do have personalities. They are unique. They have dreams. They have desires. They suffer pain. They fear. They love their babies. And, I consider them to be lives. I consider them to be worthy. I consider them to be something that needs consideration, and they're not just a commodity. But unfortunately, because the chicken slaughterhouses and flesh packing industry is closing over infected employees, 1% of the employees are infected. Isn't that less than the general population? Quite a bit less. In New York City, it's close to half of all people that are infected now. So it's a little disturbing that when 1% of the meatpacking plants are infected and off sick or whatever, then they close the whole plant. I think that's maybe because people fear buying meat from somewhere where they have heard that there's people that are infected. That's been the case forever. There's always outbreaks of illnesses passing through meat. Sorry to say, but that's not anything new. But what is new is millions of healthy birds being executed and killed. And the same thing is going on with tulip bulbs, which is kind of funny for people that follow economic history, because tulip bulbs were the first mania. They were the first market that went completely out of control and hyperbolic. There was hyperinflation in the tulip bulb market, and then there was a collapse in the tulip bulb price. And that's what we're seeing today for the first time since then, a complete collapse in the price of tulip bulbs. So there are farmers now, generally in the Netherlands, who do the farming of tulip bulbs and ship them all around the world. They say that demand has fallen or collapsed. To me, that seems strange because people are doing so much more gardening now, but apparently flower shops, etc., aren't open, so they can't purchase any of the Netherlands flowers. So tulip bulbs, there's an oversupply. So to fix their market, they say that to fix the tulip bulb market, they're going to destroy billions of tulip bulbs to try to bring prices back up above zero, basically, so that they have something, that they can actually profit off of when they grow it, rather than it being completely worthless. So this is just more signs of a disaster economy, a complete failed experiment of a fiat currency system. It is over, and we're trying to destroy as much inventory as we can to keep prices up, but there's people going hungry, and that's only going to accelerate. Destroying food when there's people hungry is only going to exacerbate the problem. It seems like it's too much common sense, but really that is the bottom line. The food is not going into mouths anymore, it's going into garbage, and there are people that are going hungry, so food costs going up. Food continues to be destroyed because it can't get to the correct markets, And it is a real disaster, and people are suffering because of this. The prices of food are going up. There's people like myself and Medicaid who purchase as much food as they can each month and barely have any money left over. So people like that are going to be having to eat less food or to make different choices and have lower quality food, which can have a detrimental effect on not just your quality of life and your enjoyment of life, but your physical and mental health too. And if you don't keep those nutrients properly coming in, you can have problems down the road. And I think that there will be some people that are immunocompromised because of the lack of sunshine from staying inside, because of the lack of proper nutrients, because of this food shortage and having to, stay inside and not have your normal options available to you for shopping, etc. And also because of stress. Stress really destroys your immune system. So, I think that they're talking about that reopen thing, and I've been noticing that there are some articles coming out that seem to be setting things up to be able to say, I told you so later. These articles have titles such as, States Prepare to Open Despite Advice of Experts. And this one article here says, health experts, CNN loves to quote just experts, experts say increased human interaction could spark new wave of cases, which has already killed more than 54,000 Americans. So they're basically saying, if we reopen too soon, there will be massive deaths. And I don't think that's just an empty threat. I think that there may be either manufactured deaths or numbers or an event of some kind coming that is going to possibly make everybody who has been calling for the reopen, including myself and millions of other people, calling them basically, calling them premature at the very least, calling them guilty of endangering lives at the worst, perhaps even worse than that. So I just feel like there's a bit of a setup going on here, and I do believe that reopen is the right thing to do, but I think that it may be done in a certain way that is going to be used against alternative media and used against channels like mine, and used against the public, and used to maybe bring in a harsher lockdown or a longer lockdown coming, maybe in the fall or later in the summer. I don't know when, but it's just a hunch, something to take into consideration. And as we talk about reopen, and the media is constantly blaming people, and I've said before that it's not about the virus really anymore, it's about controlling people. And the media now, here let's look at CNN again, people crowd California beaches despite coronavirus. So they say here, seeking relief from the heat wave, thousands crowded beaches in California. They didn't crowd. I've seen the pictures. The people are far apart unless they take the picture from a certain angle to try and show that people are clustered, which they weren't. And it says they crowded the beaches in Southern California this weekend amid the coronavirus pandemic, despite a statewide stay-at-home order implemented by the governor last month. So they're saying shame on these people for not staying at home. But this isn't about staying at home. This is about not transmitting the virus to vulnerable people. So when you go to the beach or you go to a park and you suntan by yourself, that's a healthy thing to do, very healthy. And you're not risking anyone else, unless you're trying to take rapid transit, mass transit or something on the way there and the bus is full of people. But that's the different problem, isn't it? We're talking about CNN shaming people that are at the beach because they're socially distancing at the beach outside, and they're saying that it's all about that stay-at-home order. They're saying that you have to stay at home. It's not about social distancing, it's about staying at home. It's about keeping people under control, keeping people under wraps, and keeping them where we know they are and where they sleep at night. Keep them in that place or on that unit, and don't let them out. That's the plan. And I obviously disagree with that, because you cannot keep people in their homes. You can't. It's unconstitutional, and we have constitutions and we have charters of rights and freedoms and other documents around this planet so that people know what their rights are in those countries. And one of the rights we have in Canada and the US, at least, is freedom of movement around in our countries. And freedom to gather and freedom to be in public and all these things. But all these rights have been taken away, and they're being taken away on the backs of emergencies. And these emergencies have been based on numbers that were incorrect, as I've been talking about the last few days, as in New York City, they're showing that almost half of people have already had it. So the small number of deaths relatively that they've had there, compared to almost half their population being sick, shows that it's not very deadly. It's only about as deadly as a extremely bad flu, it seems. An extremely bad flu. The worst flu, perhaps. Now, it is a little more virulent than most flus. It travels faster and it spreads quicker. Yes, it does. So it's more virulent and it's as bad as the worst flu. So it's definitely worse than a flu, but there are respiratory illnesses like SARS and such that have been going around, and people do recover from that. And we have continued on as a society without destroying our constitutions and our charters of rights and freedoms. They grant us rights, and these rights are supposedly come from our creators or from the universe or from nature or from life itself or whatever you want to say, but these aren't granted by government and they can't be taken away ever. That is the law, the highest law of the land. So all these laws are unconstitutional, and that word has been thrown around too much. It has lost its meaning. But what it means is treasonous. It means dangerous to the people. It means tyrannical. And that's what's happened here. We're living under tyranny, literally tyranny. And we don't see the jackboots marching in the streets, but it is tyranny. And if you can't leave your house or you can't leave your property, and the media is shaming you for being at the park by yourself, suntanning, it's not about controlling the virus. It's about controlling people and controlling society. Talk to you guys soon. Stay well.